After watching this month's program, be sure to take a look at the Tech News, which features information about some dial functions that have become accessible only through DCA WebLink. In addition, you can read about how WebLink is changing the way you plan and keep track of your training progress. Also included in this month's Tech News is a list of essential special tools that were released in the year 2000 and prior that are utilized when diagnosing and servicing the F4A42 and F4A51 Transaxles used on Sebring and Stratus Coupes. This month's Tech News also includes information about a newly released steering and suspension course. Moving in the Right Direction, course number 0420308, is a self-study, computer-based training course that applies the use of all available test equipment in order to aid in practical system diagnosis. You won't want to miss this month's Tech News. By now, you're probably familiar with the redesigned Chrysler Sebring and Dodge Stratus Coupes. You may recall that Mastertech covered the technical features of these vehicles in the June 2000 program. As a follow-up to that program, this month, Dan and I are going to provide you with a more detailed look at the Transaxles that are used on these vehicles.
That's right. As with any other component or system, when a vehicle comes in needing Transaxle service, we want to be sure that you have the resources you need to properly diagnose it and make the necessary repairs. These Transaxles are different from other DAIMLERCHRYSLER Transaxles in the way they operate and in the way they're serviced. We'll begin this month's program by looking at some of the characteristics of the automatic Transaxles used on these vehicles. After that, we'll go over the mechanical components and how they operate. Then we'll discuss the flow of power in the automatic Transaxles, followed by the electronic components. Finally, we'll touch on diagnostic capabilities, look at some service features, and finish with a quick look at the manual Transaxles that these vehicles use.
We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. The engine application determines which automatic Transaxle a Sebring or Stratus Coupe is equipped with. The F4A42 is used with the 2.4-liter engine, and the F4A51 is used with the 3-liter engine. Transaxles can be identified by the 11-digit stamping located on the case. The first 5 characters give you a little more information about the Transaxle. The first letter in the series identifies whether the Transaxle is front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. The next number depicts how many forward speeds are available. As you can see, these Transaxles have 4 forward speeds. In the next column, the letter A indicates the Transaxle is an automatic, while an M means it's a manual. The next 2 numbers identify the capacity rating of the Transaxle, 42 being standard duty, while 51 denotes heavy duty. Something else you should know about the F4A51 is that it comes with one of 2 Transaxle shift controls. You'll find either the standard shifter that provides automatic shifting once drive is selected, or the auto stick feature or sport mode, which allows the driver optional manual gear shifting capability. While the shift controls differ, it's important to remember that the Transaxle itself is the same. Changes have been made in the software to support the shift control changes. Unlike other DaimlerChrysler vehicles equipped with auto stick, the Transaxle will not automatically upshift when it reaches RPM thresholds for each gear. However, it will shut off fuel supply if the vehicle reaches approximately 6,200 RPM without an upshift. One unique characteristic of the F4A42 and F4A51 Transaxles is that they have an advanced form of adaptive memory. Through software in the powertrain control module, the Transaxle control system can learn and respond to different driving conditions or driver tendencies. For example, with a more relaxed driver at the wheel, the PCM will adjust shift timing to execute upshifts at a lower engine speed in order to provide smoother transitions between gears. However, with the more aggressive driver, shifts are more noticeable as the PCM adjusts timing to shift up at a higher engine speed. Adaptive memory is also evident when a driver uses the brake pedal repeatedly during downhill driving. In this case, the PCM will cause downshifts to occur early to provide engine braking. On the other hand, if a driver rarely brakes while going downhill, the PCM will delay downshifts, which will limit the effect of engine braking. Now, Dan is going to cover more of the general features of these automatic transaxles.
Thanks, John. Looking at both transaxles, you can see that they're very similar in appearance. Upon closer review, however, notice that the bell housing bolt pattern is unique for each transaxle. In other words, they cannot be interchanged. One feature common to both of these electronically controlled transaxles is the use of solenoids to provide simultaneous application and release of the clutches for optimum shifting. As the clutches and brakes are engaged, the disengaging elements are released at an equal rate to prevent any clutch overlap. This precise control of pressure during engagement and disengagement prevents interlocking or sudden revving of the engine. The result is a higher quality shift. Like other current DAIMLER-CHRYSLER transaxles, both of these automatic transaxles are designed to be a fill-for-life system, meaning that it shouldn't be necessary to change the transmission fluid. However, if you do need to refill the system during service, you'll need to use ATF SP2M or ATF SP3 transmission fluid or equivalent. Using the wrong transmission fluid could result in poor shift quality, delayed engagement, or torque converter shudder. A drain plug on the transaxle case makes draining the transmission fluid easy.
Well, now it should be fairly easy to distinguish between the F4A42 and the F4A51 transaxles. Let's go ahead and take a look at the mechanical components that make up these transaxles and see how they operate. As we mentioned in the first segment, the F4A42 and F4A51 transaxles are similar in appearance. Both transaxles are a split case design and consist of a converter housing that can be separated from the transaxle case. The valve body and its cover are also attached to the case. The rear cover supports the gear train and houses the overdrive and reverse clutch assemblies. The three-element torque converter is a damper-sprung lockup mechanism. It consists of an impeller, a turbine, and a stator. To achieve lockup, the PCM applies the damper clutch according to load, engine temperature, and speed. Both transaxles utilize the same type of oil pump. However, you should note that it must be replaced as an assembly. The valve body cover is mounted sideways, reducing the transaxle's overall height. Unlike the transaxles you're used to seeing, the oil filter is not located under the valve body cover. This is because it's internal and meant to last the life of the vehicle. To access the oil filter, you must remove the transaxle from the vehicle and disassemble it. With the exception of the reverse clutch, the valve body contains one pressure control valve and one solenoid valve for each clutch and brake. The solenoid valves route hydraulic pressure according to PCM signals in order to move hydraulic control valves. Each solenoid valve has a check ball that moves off its seat when the solenoid is off. This allows fluid pressure to be applied to the clutches and brakes. When the solenoid valve is on, the check ball is seated, blocking fluid pressure to the clutch or brake, allowing it to disengage. The pressure control valves are used to route hydraulic pressure to the clutches and brakes. These valves are controlled by the solenoid valves. When the solenoid valve is off, the fluid passage from the solenoid valve is open. This supplies hydraulic pressure to the pressure control valve. The hydraulic pressure overpowers the spring pressure in the pressure control valve, causing it to compress. When the valve moves, a port is opened, allowing line pressure to be supplied to the clutch. Notice that the solenoid control valves act as sort of a hydraulic relay. Line pressure is not routed directly through the solenoid valves to the clutches and brakes as in other transaxles that you're familiar with. The pressure regulator valve maintains hydraulic pressure from the oil pump at a specified level depending on transaxle range. In effect, it adjusts line pressure to the clutches. Both of these transaxles are equipped with fail-safe or limp-in modes. In the event of a fault in the transaxle electronic control system, third gear and reverse are still available, and in some cases, second gear is also available. Dan is going to explain this in further detail.
Thanks, John. If you're familiar with limp-in mode, then you know that this is different from other current front-wheel drive vehicles in which only second gear and reverse are available. Two fail-safe valves are used to provide limp-in operation. Fail-safe valves A and B inhibit the application of the low reverse brake and second brake in forward gear. A switch valve supplies hydraulic fluid to the low reverse clutch, enabling reverse gear. We'll explain limp-in operation in further detail when we get into diagnosis. Now let's continue our discussion of the mechanics of these transaxles. The speedometer gear on these transaxles has a built-in vehicle speed sensor, or VSS. Because of different gear ratios, the number of teeth on the speedometer gear varies between the F4A42 and F4A51. For this reason, they are not interchangeable. The mechanical components which provide the transaxle gear ratios consist of two planetary gear sets, 3 multi-disc clutches, 2 multi-disc brakes, and a one-way clutch. The underdrive clutch is applied in first, second, and third gears and transmits power from the input shaft to the underdrive sun gear. The reverse clutch is applied in reverse gear and transmits power from the input shaft to the reverse sun gear. The overdrive clutch is applied in third and fourth gears and transmits power from the input shaft to the overdrive planetary carrier and low reverse annulus gear. Note that the overdrive clutch on the F4A42 is different from the F4A51 in that it uses 4 clutch plates instead of 3. The first of the holding clutches, the low reverse brake, is applied in first and reverse gears and when the vehicle is in park or neutral. The low reverse brake locks the low reverse annulus gear and the overdrive planetary carrier to the case in first gear at speeds up to about 5 or 6 miles per hour. It's also used with a reverse clutch to provide reverse gear. The second brake is applied in second and fourth gear and locks the reverse sun gear to the case. The one-way clutch holds in first gear to prevent counterclockwise rotation of the low reverse annulus. It also prevents engine flare and improves shifts from first to second. These transaxles use 2 planetary gear sets. The carrier of one gear set is connected mechanically to the annulus of the other. With this configuration, the gear ratio can be varied by locking the carriers and sun gears. From what we've told you so far, you can see that these transaxles are different from those you've seen in the past.
They sure are. Now let's take a look at power flow of these automatic transaxles. At this point, let's see how these components control the flow of power through the transaxle in the forward and reverse gears, as well as when the vehicle is in park and neutral. When the transaxle is in park or shifted into neutral, all input clutches are disengaged. At the same time, the low reverse brake is applied in order to enable a quick shift to either first gear or reverse. When in reverse, the reverse clutch and low reverse brake are applied. Power from the input shaft is transmitted to the reverse sun gear through the reverse clutch. The low reverse brake locks the overdrive planetary carrier. Power at the reverse sun gear is then transmitted to the output annulus gear as counterclockwise torque. Torque is transmitted to the output planetary carrier, enabling reverse gear. So far, we've covered park, neutral, and reverse gears. Now, we'll look at gear operation when you shift the transaxle into drive. In first gear, the underdrive clutch and the low reverse brake are applied. Power is transmitted from the input shaft to the underdrive sun gear through the underdrive clutch. The output pinions rotate around the underdrive sun gear, causing the output planetary carrier to turn clockwise. Because the low reverse brake is applied and the low reverse annulus gear is locked, only the output planetary carrier turns clockwise, achieving first gear. In second gear, the input once again starts with the underdrive clutch, which turns the underdrive sun gear. The underdrive sun gear turns the output pinions, which drive the low reverse annulus. Since the low reverse annulus is connected to the overdrive planetary carrier, it also turns. The reverse sun gear is locked, causing the pinions to walk around the sun gear and drive the output annulus gear. This gear is linked to the output planetary carrier, which is the output. In third gear, the underdrive clutch and overdrive clutch are applied. The input shaft transmits power to the overdrive planetary carrier and to the low reverse annulus. Power is also transmitted to the underdrive sun gear. Because the low reverse annulus and sun gear are both driven, they turn as a unit for a 1-to-1 ratio. In fourth gear, the overdrive clutch and second brake are applied. Power from the input shaft is sent to the overdrive planetary carrier through the overdrive clutch. The reverse sun gear is locked by the second brake. The overdrive pinions rotate around the reverse sun gear, sending power to the low reverse annulus and then to the output planetary carrier, achieving fourth gear ratio. As you can see, the flow of power through the F4A42 and F4A51 transaxles is unique. Next, we're going to discuss the electronic components that control these transaxles and go over their operation. To successfully diagnose and service these transaxles, it's a good idea to know the electronic components that control them and how they operate. To begin, the PCM provides combined engine and transaxle control. It can be accessed behind the glove box after the air duct has been removed. The PCM has a number of functions which include monitoring inputs and controlling shift timing, shift quality, and damper clutch operation. The PCM monitors transaxle input speed using a Hall effect device at the underdrive clutch retainer. The PCM uses the input speed sensor to confirm correct transaxle operation. If for any reason the input speed sensor should fail, the transaxle will go into limp-in mode. The PCM monitors transaxle output speed with another Hall effect device at the transfer-driven gear. The PCM also uses the output speed sensor to verify proper transaxle operation. If the output speed sensor fails, the PCM will use the vehicle speed sensor in the speedometer gear as a backup. The crankshaft position sensor monitors engine speed at the crankshaft sprocket. The PCM compares the difference between engine RPM and input speed sensor RPM and uses this information to control torque converter clutch engagement. The throttle position sensor provides throttle position input to the PCM. The PCM will then change shift points as necessary. The automatic transaxle fluid, or ATF temperature sensor, works via a negative temperature coefficient, or NTC thermistor. As the fluid temperature in the transaxle increases, resistance decreases. Low resistance causes earlier shifts. As fluid temperature in the transaxle decreases, resistance increases. High resistance causes later shifts. On vehicles equipped with auto stick, if the fluid should overheat, the neutral lamp will flash at 2 Hz as a warning. The park neutral position switch on the transaxle housing uses contact switches to detect selector lever position. The PCM can determine selector position when battery voltage is applied to corresponding circuits. An AC dual pressure switch is located on the high pressure line between the condenser and the expansion valve. It sends AC system status to the PCM. The PCM can anticipate additional load caused by AC clutch engagement and adjust shift points accordingly. The stop lamp switch provides brake status input to the PCM. This input is used in controlling torque converter clutch operation. Finally, the auto stick select switch is an input used on 3-liter vehicles having the auto stick feature. When auto stick is enabled by the driver, the auto stick select switch sends an input to the PCM. Then, based on input from the shift switch, the PCM will cause an upshift or a downshift. The auto stick feature also has a few diagnostic capabilities, but we'll talk about that a little later in the program. Now, Dan is going to go over PCM outputs.
The first output we'll cover is the solenoid valves, which are located in the valve body and act as hydraulic relays. Solenoid valve operation is a little different than what you're used to. The solenoid valves are normally open. The PCM provides the ground for the solenoid valves. When energized, the solenoid valves close, blocking fluid pressure and releasing a clutch. When de-energized, the solenoid valves open, allowing fluid to pass and apply a clutch. The transaxle control relay, located in the power distribution center, provides the power for the solenoid valves. If the transaxle control relay should fail, the transaxle will go into limp-in mode. Now that you're familiar with transaxle operation, let's go over some diagnostic information that you should be aware of. We'll begin our look at diagnosis by going over some of the resources available to help you diagnose and repair these transaxles. Unlike the separate service and diagnostic manuals you may be used to, the service information and diagnostic procedures for Sebring and Stratus Coupes are combined. 3 service manual volumes cover Sebring and Stratus Coupes, and all transaxle-related information can be found in Volume 3. Vehicles with the auto stick feature have some unique diagnostic capabilities. For example, anytime a vehicle with auto stick goes into limp-in mode, the neutral lamp in the prindle will flash at a rate of 1 Hertz or once per second to warn the driver. In fact, it'll flash if there's a fault with the automatic transaxle control relay, the input or output speed sensors, the solenoid valves, or if the transaxle is out of phase at each shift point. In addition, it'll flash at a faster rate, about 2 Hertz or twice per second, if the automatic transmission fluid becomes too hot. The neutral lamp will also flash on these vehicles whenever the DRB3 is hooked up and you've navigated to any of the selections in the system menu. If there is a fault in the electronic control system, the transaxle will go into one of 2 limp-in modes. In major limp-in, only third gear and reverse are available. All solenoid valves are off. During major limp-in, when the selector lever is in drive, combined action of the switch valve and failsafe valve A prevent the low reverse clutch from engaging. Failsafe valve B prevents the second brake from engaging. The underdrive and overdrive clutches are applied, resulting in third gear. The manual valve and failsafe valve A can still route fluid to the reverse clutch in low reverse brake for reverse gear. In minor limp-in, only second, third, and reverse are available. During minor limp-in, the low reverse clutch is still prevented from engaging when the selector lever is in drive. Failsafe valve B does allow manual selection of second gear. Now John is going to go over some of the DRB3 capabilities on these transaxles.
Thanks, Dan. Before you can use the DRB3 on Sebring and Stratus Coupes, the Sebring Stratus memory card, number CH8425, must be installed. As with other systems, the DRB3 can be used to read diagnostic trouble codes, or P codes. However, you need to be in the system that set the code in order for the DRB3 to detect it. Using the DRB3 with the PEP module, you can also perform a hydraulic pressure test. To do this, you'll need to use PEP adapter number CH8520 and adapter number CH8513, along with straight adapter number 8620 or elbow adapter number MD998332. In order to simplify this pressure testing, the test port locations are indicated on the transaxle housing. Using the scope feature on the PEP module, you can also look at waveforms. With the DRB3, you can check the status of various PCM inputs and outputs as well, including the solenoid valves, to see whether they are energized and de-energized at the proper times. This information can help you determine if the concern is electrical versus hydraulic. You can also check solenoid operation by performing actuator tests. While activating the solenoids with the DRB3, you can check their status. In a minute, we're going to take a quick look at automatic transaxle service features.
First, let's go over some of the tests you can perform on these transaxles using the DRB3. Using the DRB3 with the Sebring Stratus memory card installed, you can read diagnostic trouble codes or P codes. You can also perform tests. You can check the status of PCM inputs and outputs. And finally, you can check solenoid operation. Before you service these transaxles, there are a number of new special tools that you should be aware of. For a complete list of special tools used on these transaxles, refer to this month's Tech News. Now, let's take a look at some transaxle service features. First, all gasket surfaces on these transaxles use form-in-place gaskets, part number 82300234. Also, during assembly, all gaskets, O-rings, and seals must be replaced with new parts. When installing the oil pump, use Oil Seal Installer, special tool number MD998334. During installation, you need to be sure that it's aligned properly, as incorrect alignment will cause pump failure and damage to the transaxle. When servicing the valve body, you need to remove the solenoid harness connector snap ring before the valve body can be removed. Also, when unbolting the valve body, take note of the 4 70mm bolts that do not require removal. Removing these bolts will cause the top of the valve body to come off and parts can be lost or damaged. The manual control lever and its shaft is fitted to the top of the valve body and is linked to the parking mechanism as well as the manual control valve. When removing the park mechanism, the second O-ring must be removed before removing the manual shaft. Otherwise, a piece of the O-ring could become lodged in the shaft retainer pinhole. 4 spring-loaded accumulators help soften clutch engagement. Each accumulator spring has a different level of stiffness, so correct placement during assembly is essential. The springs are identified by the amount of colored markings on them. You should consult the service procedures during assembly to ensure correct placement of the springs. In other areas, when assembling the one-way clutch, to ensure proper installation, the arrow should be pointing towards the output planetary carrier. Each automatic transaxle has a unique transfer drive gear. They're differentiated by the number of mounting bolts that are used. The transfer drive gear on the F4A42 uses 7 mounting bolts, while that on the F4A51 uses 8 mounting bolts. You'll need to use special tool number MD998412 to guide the transfer drive gear bearing into the transaxle case. The transfer-driven gear is press-fitted onto the output shaft. The output shaft is secured by a left-handed thread lock nut. The lock nut is secured to the output shaft by staking. A 19mm hexagon-shaped hole in the opposite end of the shaft allows the shaft to be held in position so the lock nut can be removed. When reassembling the transaxle, a new lock nut must be used.
Before we leave today, let's go over some of the features of the manual transaxles that are used on the Sebring and Stratus coupes. The F5M42 is used on the 2.4-liter engine, and the F5M51 is used with the 3-liter engine. There are some clutch pedal operating characteristics of these transaxles that you should be aware of. For example, the clutch pedal must be fully depressed in order for a clean shift to occur. Failure to fully depress the clutch pedal may result in gear clash, higher than normal shift effort, or difficulty initially engaging first gear. Obstacles can prevent full pedal travel, so be sure to check for such things as wadded up carpet. If the clutch is not operating as it should, it may need to be adjusted, or the hydraulic system may need to be bled. For either procedure, refer to Volume 1 of the service manual. Now, Dan is going to give you some service information concerning the clutches used on these vehicles.
If you'll recall from the June of 2000 program, 2 different clutches are used. You're already familiar with the push-type clutch, which is used on the F5M42. However, a pull-type clutch is used on the F5M51. The F5M51 transaxle cannot be removed from the vehicle without first disconnecting the release bearing. To do this, insert a flat-tipped screwdriver in the service hole of the bell housing and pry gently to disengage the release bearing from the wedge collar. When removing the transaxle, it's important that you remember that the flex plate and flywheel is an assembled balance component that should never be taken apart. Well, that concludes this month's look at the transaxles used on the Chrysler Sebring and Dodge Stratus Coupes. If you'd like more information about these transaxles, a 3-day course is available that covers diagnostic and testing procedures, as well as disassembly and reassembly of the automatic transaxles. Look for F4A42, F4A51, Operation, Diagnosis, and Repair, course number 0241024.
Next is a bonus program which will provide you with valuable information about the DCA WebLink. Training is an ongoing reality in automotive service, and the DaimlerChrysler Academy, or DCA, is proving to play a significant part in ensuring you get the training you need to make your job easier. One aspect of DCA is WebLink, an internet website available to all dealership personnel for training and informational purposes. Launched in February of 2000, DCA WebLink has already proven to be a useful tool in allowing personnel to track their training, register for courses, and plan ahead in order to help them reach their certification goals. In addition, service managers find it to be useful in monitoring training activity for their entire department. This month's bonus program is going to give you an introductory look at WebLink, so you'll be able to take full advantage of its benefits and features.
Hey Brian, have you registered for that new Transaxle course yet?
Not yet. I haven't had a chance to get on dial today.
You know, you can register through DCA WebLink now.
I've heard that, but I've never used it before.
Well, come on. I'll show you why you should use it and how easy it is.
Okay.
I've been using WebLink for a while now, and I've really found it to be helpful in a number of ways.
Like how?
Well, first, with WebLink, you can obtain your personal training information and track your own progress. Because you can retrieve and examine your individual certification requirements, along with your training history, you can develop and manage your own personal training goals. It lets you take a more active role in your training development. You can also view your training results quickly. That's because they're available immediately after a CD-ROM course score has been submitted. For instructor-led training, results can be viewed as soon as the roster is processed. And you can use WebLink to register for training courses. As a manager, I use it to generate management reports in order to keep track of the training and certification levels of all the people in my department. I also use it to view training schedules so I can plan assignments. Through WebLink, everyone in the dealership can access information about upcoming training.
We sometimes call the hotline for that.
Well, now there's no need for that. WebLink has the latest information and dates on upcoming training. You can read about current and future fast CD-ROM courses and about upcoming Mastertech programs. Something else that WebLink allows you to do is transmit your score for credit online after completing a course.
And the nice thing about that is I can take those training courses in my own time.
Right. You get the training you need at the time and place most convenient for you.
Sounds like WebLink can be pretty helpful, but unfortunately, I don't have a lot of computer training.
That's okay. You'll find that WebLink is quite user-friendly. You can access it from any internet-connected PC, making accessibility 24/7. The website is easy to navigate and understand, reducing the time it takes to become familiar with it.
And by using WebLink, I won't have to depend on you or our systems coordinator to register me for training or check my scores.
That's right. Now, let's go ahead and look at some WebLink features that you're going to find useful. Before you can use WebLink, you need to know that the website works best with Netscape Communicator version 4.5 or higher.
What if my computer doesn't have Netscape Communicator?
Well, then you can download it by clicking on the download box when you first attempt to log on. And like other websites, the speed of WebLink will vary depending on the speed of your modem and your internet service provider.
Okay, so now we're ready to log on, right?
Well, wait a minute. Before you can even access the website, you need to establish a username and password. And before you can do this, you have to first verify that you're already in the Dealer Personnel System, or DPS. If you aren't sure if you're in the system, your systems coordinator can verify this. We know that you're in the system, but since this is your first time using the website, you need to complete the sign-up process in order to get your permanent username and password. To do this, in the URL field, type in www.cpjd.com/access and press the Enter key on your keyboard. At this point, a username and password window will appear. This is where you need to establish a sign-on ID for yourself. To do this, in the username field, type in CPJD and type access in the password field. Then click on the OK button. At this point, you'll be asked to supply some personal information, such as Social Security number and dealer code.
This information is safe, right?
Yeah, this is a protected site, so the personal information that you provide cannot be accessed by anyone else. Now, when you get to the screen where you're asked to supply a password, remember that this will be the password that you'll use every time you log on to the DCA website. It should be something that you can remember easily. After you've supplied all the appropriate information, click on the Submit button. A congratulations screen will be displayed along with it, your username. Like your password, you'll need to supply your username every time you log on to the DCA website.
So I should write it down.
Right. And as with any internet ID and password, this is personal information. For security reasons, you should never give it out. Okay, now that you can access the website, let's go ahead and see what you can do with it. When you first log on, you'll be at the CPJD homepage. Here, you can choose from a number of links, like Pentastar Service Equipment or the 5-Star Market Center. Under Programs, clicking on DAIMLERCHRYSLER Academy will take you to the DCA WebLink homepage. WebLink will then access your personal information and configure itself for you. In other words, from here on out, much of the information you'll have access to will apply only to you. On the WebLink homepage, there are a number of options that you can select from. Positioning the cursor over the options will bring up a description of what you'll find in it. For example, if you select Training Plan, you can develop your own personal training plan, manage and launch courses, and track progress. The first time you access the training plan, it defaults to gold level status. Now, you're working towards bronze level status, right?
Right.
So you'll need to change this. To do this, simply click on the pull-down menu and select the appropriate status level, in your case, bronze. Now, using the training plan as a guideline, you can develop and manage your own training strategy. As you can see, the training plan contains a list of requirements that you need to meet in order to reach your certification goal. It also allows you to view your progress. Anything in blue indicates either the requirement has been completed or is not needed.
And those in red are the requirements that still need to be completed.
Right. As you can see, first on the list is your Mastertech requirements. As you complete each monthly program, your status will be updated here. Clicking on Skill Level Achievement will give you a list of what skill level you've achieved in each of the 11 skill categories. Clicking on the skill name will give you a list of what courses you've taken and when they were completed. It also lists other courses available that you can take that will count toward your certification. You can enroll in a course by clicking on it. You'll get a list of the available instructor-led courses in your zone. Find the location nearest you, click on the course name, and follow the instructions to sign up for it. Remember that every 8 hours of training will give you 1 credit towards your certification. However, ASE certification does not earn you a credit. Now let's go back to the training plan page.
Well, since you enrolled me in that engine course, shouldn't it show up as being scheduled?
No, because all courses are pending until they're approved by me.
My manager.
Right. Once I approve the course, it will appear on your training plan as scheduled.
What are the options at the bottom of the training plan page for?
Those allow you to perform various functions. For example, you can choose to print your training plan. Choosing Select an Elective will bring up a list of all the classes that you can take that will go towards your certification. Back on the training plan page, if you choose Select Non-Certification, you can look at available courses that may be of use, however, will not count toward your certification. The final selection at the bottom of the training plan page is Training History. This allows you to view your training history from as far back as 1991. So you can see how your future training plans correlate with what you've done in the past.
What else can I do with WebLink?
Well, using the pull-down menu, you can navigate to the second menu item, which is Reports. This is what I use to keep track of the training activity in my department. The next option after Reports is Certification Rules. Here you can read about new rules pertaining to sales, service, and parts for 2001. You can also review the general rules and eligibility of certification.
Is this the same information that's in the certification rules book?
It is. However, you should know that 2001 certification rules are only available online. There's no longer a printed certification rules book. Another thing you can look at are the certification requirements and course offerings for your area of expertise, whether you're a service manager, service advisor, or service technician. Under this heading, you could also read about training rewards under Rewards and Recognition. For news about upcoming training, check out On the Horizon. By selecting the upcoming training option and then Technical, you can find a listing of fast CD-ROM courses and learn about upcoming Mastertech programs. Choosing Meet Your Trainer under On the Horizon, you can read about DCA trainers and dealership personnel that have made a difference in their field. Under In the Spotlight, you can find out what's happening at other dealerships. You can get answers to some frequently asked questions concerning WebLink and DaimlerChrysler Academy under FAQs. And finally, under Did You Know, you can obtain valuable information that can help you with your job. For example, right now you can read about the newest WebLink enhancements and find out what to do if CD-ROM or DVD-ROM disks time out. The next category, Industry Links, allows you to access other DCA sites, such as 5-Star, CAP, and the Daimler-Chrysler corporate site. You can also go to specific sites like Dodge, Jeep, and Mopar from here. Industry Links also connects a variety of industry-related websites, like the Association of Axle Manufacturers, the Automotive Service Excellence Organization, and the Automotive Youth Educational Systems, or AES. Finally, if you choose Guides and Manuals, you can review and print the 2001 Technical Training Course Catalog. This provides the latest course information in all of the skill level categories, including special category courses and optional courses.
This is the same information that's in the core curriculum catalog, right?
Right. It's the same as the printed version. However, remember that the data online is going to be more current because potential updates and changes can be made easily. The last item on the WebLink homepage is a help selection, which provides tips and information about WebLink and many of the WebLink features. Here, the WebLink User's Manual can be downloaded for future reference and used as a guide to help you in website navigation. Remember that the User's Manual is updated on a regular basis in order to reflect the most up-to-date WebLink information.
Well, I think this should be easy enough.
Wait a minute, there's one more thing. When you've finished with WebLink, it's important that you exit correctly in order to secure your personal information. To do this, choose the File option at the top left side of the page. Navigate to Exit and click. Remember, this is the only way to ensure that all of your personal information is secure.
Thanks for the help, Jeff. I'm going to go ahead and register for that Transaxle course now.
It's a good idea. We'll see you later.
Okay.
Well, that concludes our look at the benefits and features of WebLink. If you feel you need additional WebLink support, whether it's help with hardware or software, or even functional support, you can call the DAIMLER-CHRYSLER dealership hotline at 1-800-374-4040. Finally, because of ongoing site enhancements, some familiar aspects of WebLink may change. For this reason, it's a good idea to access WebLink periodically to look for these enhancements. You can also refer to the monthly tech news for WebLink update information. Thanks for watching this month. Be sure to join us again next month when we'll be discussing the 2002 Jeep Liberty.